All right, so because we don't have so much time, I think maybe we can start by just going around the table to introduce ourselves, and then I'll start with some questions for the panel, and then hopefully Samakab will join us as we're speaking. So Ben, can we start with you? Maybe you can just tell us a little bit about your background and your view on what the current scenario holds for us in Africa. How are you thinking about the future? So it'd be great to hear a bit from you.
Thanks for having me. I think this is probably the first time I've done a full panel in my bedroom, and so let's see how that goes. And hopefully my young daughter doesn't come streaming in the door and I end up on one of those famous YouTube videos. So my name is Ben Schmerler. I run an early stage venture fund called SUNU Capital. We have been making investments out of this vehicle for about the past 4 years. We are very bullish on Africa generally, and invest in across all sectors and a number of different check sizes. Very, very early stage things like you have a laptop and a dream, up through sometimes Series B. And so we've got quite a wide range of doing that. My background is in agriculture finance, and supply chains. And yeah, I guess in this moment right now, I think it probably still holds the things that I'm bullish on about Africa. You know, the investments we've been making in 2019 and 2020 were often in places where we had some belief that there was inelastic demand in the markets that we were investing in. Those would be food, pharmaceuticals, logistics, and core infrastructure, and looking at things that, looking less at things that were variable cost and partnership businesses. Non-essential stuff has been things that we have kind of strayed away from, but really been focused a lot on food and pharmaceuticals, logistics, etc. And then I think going forward, and this is something that's happening all over the place with venture capitalists, and if you read all of the blogs that people are writing, organizations are going to be pressed in this moment to get to things like understanding unit economics, profitability faster, and being more efficient with capital, because there's just no way around it that the capital markets will be more constrained for the next 18 to 24 months. And so checking yourself around burn rates and how you're allocating your capital that you have, which needs to be thought of as a precious resource at this point in time, is going to be essential. The other thing I'll say, and this will be kind of my last point, and I liked this, I read this somewhere recently, that both the investors and I think also entrepreneurs are all feeling anxious and a little bit frayed right now. And so I super appreciate the work that Bullish on Africa is doing, the TechCabal, Parity, and others, to bring us together and bring a sense of community, because like we're all feeling this level of anxiety and a bit disjointed. And so I think coming together, talking about it, being open and honest is really critical today.
No, thank you for that. Really, really helpful, and a lot of those points resonate. It looks like Samakab has been able to join us. Thanks for joining. We're just going around doing introductions and then giving a brief overview of your investing philosophy in Africa and how your view might have changed recently. So kicked off with Ben, and we can go on to Dotun because he's next on my screen.
Everyone, Dotun, a little bit about my background and what we do at Novastar. My background is actually in academia, actually. So I see myself as a recovering academic. Grew up in Nigeria, left to the UK 16 years ago, did master's and then a PhD in environmental management, and I did postdoc after that on air quality management. Then found myself into entrepreneurship. By accident, actually. I was trying to solve a problem on on-demand food delivery in the UK. Founded a company called Meals.co.uk, raised seed capital, about $1 million, and we scaled. But we didn't do well as we intended because it's $1 billion business. Our competition raised more money than us. But I got lucky enough to get partnership or exit through partnership with Just Eat, which is the biggest on-demand food platform in Europe. And I found myself in then after that, becoming an angel investor, working with a syndicate fund looking into investing in Africa. And I started my journey, our interaction, engagement with Africa, even though I was born in Africa, but professionally started looking into opportunities on the continent. And what drew me a lot is the sheer amount of energy, the sheer amount of challenge that the continent has, and I see that as opportunity. That there's so many things that's broken, there's so many things that needs to be fixed, and it gives opportunity for entrepreneurs to be able to fix those things using innovation, technology. Yes, in some cases also replicating what has been done in the West, but putting an African twist to it. And I saw that opportunity, and I wanted to be part of it. I usually tell people that when I read a lot of Africa or Nigeria, who was in the UK, and I see a lot of opportunity, and I don't want to just be reading about it. I want to be part of the people doing that. So that led me to doing a lot of work around education, entrepreneurship education, supporting entrepreneurs, doing a little bit of consulting. But then I realized that I could do more by becoming an investor again. So that led me a lot of journey back to becoming a VC with Novastar Ventures. And the idea behind Novastar Ventures is basically the thesis is, which is very timely now, is Novastar was set up 6 years ago, and the first fund was $72 million. And we're now in a second fund. We just closed our second fund at $108 million. And the idea is to support entrepreneurs that are using innovative business model to address the low-income mass market in Africa. We believe that's the true mass market in Africa. There's no strong middle class. The bottom of the pyramid that get a lot of noise are not the most impactful in terms of economic impact. A lot of grants go there, but the most impactful class of people are the driver, the guys that welcome you at the airport. They earn some money, but a lot of places they spend that money on is the value chain is broken. And Novastar was set up to support entrepreneurs that are building products and services to that market, either to buy from that market or to sell into that market. And that has been very, very helpful in the sense that even in this time of COVID, one of the things we're going to be discussing now is how do we kickstart the economy again? How do we enable people not just to be receiving, but to earn and to be economically viable? And one of the ways to do that is to build value chain, or to enable value chain, either by access or by making things cheaper for them. And that's what Novastar is set up to do.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's really good to see that journey. So you're being an entrepreneur and then now ending up in investing. Excited to unpack that a little bit more. We'll move on to Andreata to give us a background.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm a partner at TLCom Capital. So we're a venture capital fund, been around for 2 decades, historically investing in Europe and in Israel, and over the last decade started looking at the Africa tech opportunity. So we invested in companies that were initially, they were European companies deploying technology in Africa and selling products and services here. We're quite successful with 2 of the ventures in East Africa and West Africa, and even managed to exit one to a private equity fund and another one to a strategic buyer. So since then, been working on the continent. We run a $71 million fund focused on investing in tech-enabled businesses across the continent, across several verticals. And fundamentally, the opportunity, I think, quite similar to what my other panelists have said, but looking to see how the increase in mobile penetration has made the African consumer more accessible, as well as African business also just a strong push for digitization and bringing efficiency within certain verticals on the continent that are broken. So there's high mobile penetration but very low access to education, for example. And if you think, so to date we've made 7 investments. So in the spaces of logistics, education, fintech, and business services, and are looking to make more investments going forward. The second part of your question was around how our view has changed in light of the pandemic. Fundamentally, our long-term view has not shifted or changed. We still see that there is a great tech opportunity on the African continent, and in fact, to a great extent, being a tech investor is an ideal place in this time, because it's really the growth of the internet will be accelerated by the pandemic, because there's a greater shift to digitize. So in the long term, we're quite excited about the opportunity. And then, of course, in the short term, we're trying to see how do we support our existing portfolio companies, and then how to make new investments in a time where mobility is limited. And then, of course, certain spaces are not as attractive because they are greatly hit. So if you think about, say, travel and hospitality, for example, but still, opportunities are emerging in many other services. So I'm done speaking.
Okay, all right. Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, definitely very insightful, and definitely agree that tech is one of the more resilient sectors. So we'll be interested to hear your specific views later on any subsectors, on things you're observing in the market, what the pipeline of activity looks like. So let's go to Samakab now to hear from him, his introduction and a little bit about current viewpoints on the market.
So, hi, thanks for having me. So, my name's Sam. I'm a partner at Lateral Capital. Lateral Capital is focusing on investing in tech-enabled businesses across the continent. And we invest across a wide level of sectors, from healthcare to education to logistics to e-commerce to fintech. In essence, we're trying to build the core critical infrastructure that the African population will be using as we go from 1 billion to 2 billion people. In regards to my background, this is now my 4th major crisis that I've managed to go through. So I started my career in leveraged finance during distressed debt. Then I was working in European private equity during the European crisis. Then I was working in the Middle East during the oil price crisis, and now I'm in Africa for the COVID-19 crisis. So there's 2 things you can learn about that. Number 1, I'm unlucky. And number 2, that every crisis ends. And for us, we're still very much in a situation where we're looking to continue to invest, and we're still looking to invest in the key factors that makes a business attractive. Does it have a competitive advantage? Is there a clear market? Especially in this kind of industry, in this time, does it have a pricing advantage? So for us, we will continue to look at new deals. We'll continue to invest, obviously over the short term, as everything from tax to regulation to currency is all somewhat of a flux over the next 3 or 4 months. We'll be cautious, but ultimately the factors that made us interested in Africa, predominantly the population, the urbanization, the young population, the interesting demographics, all these factors, these are long-term trends. So whilst in the short term, we may focus on slightly more counter-cyclical businesses, slightly more robust businesses, ultimately, we're still excited about the long-term opportunity, and venture capital and private equity are long-term gains.
No, thank you so much. Yeah, really, really interesting to hear how many crises you've been through in your career. So I'll give a short introduction. I'm Nneka Chime. I work for Crossboundary. We're an investment firm. We have offices across the continent. Specifically work on investment facilitation. So we work with entrepreneurs and businesses that are raising capital. So we work on a commercial basis, trying to get them the capital they need to grow their businesses. As we found that sometimes there are businesses that are investable, the underlying business is investable, but the barrier to them attracting capital is really just getting them to a place where they're ready to, so they have their models or their business models in order. Have they thought through their strategy? Do they have the right network? So that's the role we play. In Nigeria, we've been working a lot on the off-grid energy space. So working with USAID on the Nigeria Power Sector program, trying to bring capital to the off-grid sector to increase the number of off-grid connections in the industry. And I've had the pleasure of interacting with both Novastar Ventures, Brian, and also Lateral Capital. So most recently, spoke to a company that was potentially raising capital from Lateral Capital, and my colleague had those conversations. So it's nice to meet everyone here, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about your perspective. So I think we'll into some questions. So there's a general sense of positivity, especially based on the sector that most people here focus on, which is the tech-enabled sector. And so I'm just curious about your portfolio company. So the environment that we're in now, so everyone is struggling with cash. So Ben mentioned, cash is is a critical resource. Everyone has to conserve cash. So even businesses that may be fundamentally good are also struggling, right, because of the environment that we find ourselves in. So I'm just wondering what you're seeing with your portfolio companies and what measures you're taking to support them. Yeah, and I'll.
Sure. So I can go. Certainly, I mean, you know, I think as many investors, there's a greater focus towards supporting our existing portfolio companies. And they fall across, you know, different spectrums. There are some that don't need a lot of cash because they already have cash, but there's some, say, that we're planning to raise in this coming year and looking to extend that forward because, you know, if you think about, say, foreign investors might not be able to come to do due diligence and the like. So there's definitely conversations we're having internally for, say, the companies that need additional capital to raise capital. And then also, I think, coupled with that is to also work with the entrepreneur to see where they can conserve cash within their business. So when you look at the core of your business, where are places where you can cut, if you think, say, in terms of your costs, in terms of working capital, seeing how you can extract more cash from your working capital, as well as other, you know, emerging opportunities where there are revenue opportunities that are emerging that the companies can also go ahead and pursue those. So really, I mean, there's a lot of focus around supporting our portfolio companies in this crisis because fundamentally, you know, the businesses are sound. They've just found themselves in this crisis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. And on due diligence, so some investors that we work with have also talked about some adaptations, like trying to use drones, for example, because they can't travel. So again, leveraging technology to try to keep things marching forward. So do any others have anything to add?
I think what Andreata said is we, you know, and we have businesses in our portfolio that this moment has been a huge boost to their business, actually, and they are countercyclical, and we're seeing growth through this period of time. So just making sure that people can manage that and manage through all of the regulation and the stopping and the starting and to the cash conservation. I think what I find to be the place where I guess maybe I'm the most useful to portfolio companies right now is just being available to have conversations with folks so they can just like work through some of the, you know, the complicated emotions they're feeling right now, the anxiety, et cetera, and then branching out to a broader network to speak to other investors, et cetera, so that they can get a broader picture of what's happening out in the markets.
Happy to go next. Yeah, we're in an interesting place in the sense that we, our first fund is fully capitalized. We invested in 15 businesses in using the first fund, and that's where we have the most engagement in terms of our challenge with regards to companies that probably for no fault of theirs, they're facing challenges now, cash flow and profitability, and some of them are not yet, they've not even reached that profitability yet, and we don't have any more cash to invest in them. We only have very limited amount of pots of capital now to do follow-on for some of them. And what we've done for those ones is first we try to understand. We did a lot of meetings with our portfolio company, try to understand what is happening, where are you, what's happening, and we did a lot of in-depth analysis about cash flow, supply chain management, demand management, and a lot of things around what is it, what is the gap that they have now, and how can we fill those gaps. And what we then did was to start engaging with some of our LPs to see whether we can get more capital for them. And we are at the moment looking into doing debt facility for some of our existing portfolio companies that we cannot longer invest from that pot, from the pot of capital that we had before for the first fund. And some of them need it, some of them don't, because maybe some of them after you've changed their business model in a way that is enabling them to have more capital, to have more cash into their business. But the ones that are feeling those challenges, for no fault of theirs, we're seeking ways to help them to weather this crisis. But for the second one, we're in a very interesting place in the second one, because we just started now. We have enough money. And we are multi-round investors. So we're looking for more businesses that are coming up, and we can continue to invest in them and weather through this time that they might be facing.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. That's really interesting. And one observation I had is that some companies are even looking for consolidation opportunities. So looking at the off-grid energy space, so some well-capitalized players know that some fundamentally, sound businesses might struggle. So definitely some are taking advantage of the current situation to, emerge stronger with a more robust companies. So really interesting to see that everyone here intends on continuing to double down on existing fundamentally sound companies. So I see a question from the audience here. So Tayo asks, what is your view on the extent to which the COVID market fit will become long-standing opportunities for companies in your portfolio? So I think he's trying to ask, in terms of the adaptations that we're having to make now, like do we see this as a long-term adaptation that will continue when the peak of the crisis is over?
So I can take that. So from an opportunity perspective, if I can answer the question across the verticals where we're invested. So in terms of COVID fit kind of opportunities that are emerging. So we have one business, ULesson, which is in online education, which has seen significant ramp up. As you can imagine, with schools closing and parents wanting to engage their children at home. So that's, I think, that traction has been good, and we foresee that growing. So certainly it won't be pure online learning, but I think blended learning is here with us to stay. So I think on the education side, yes. We also have business in the business services, so providing software and digitizing corporates and SMEs. That also I think is here to stay, because for a long time we've been preaching the gospel of how companies need to go digital. So now you don't need to really convince anybody that is the case. And then also I think we have a company in the fintech space, and then as well as in logistics and supply chain. And the opportunities that we're seeing, I think they're certainly here to stay, because I think what the pandemic has done is that e-commerce has been accelerated, digital payments has been accelerated, online education also has been accelerated, and those are some of the spaces where we're invested in.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just chip into this? I think we have to be careful about, and I talk about it recently, about not mixing up COVID market fit with product market fit. And I like the way Taya put that question, because there's so many uncertainty now, and we are having this fire hose of data coming at us every time. We don't know what is the new normal. What is the normal going to be like for a long time? How long are we going to be in this holding period? And when it ends, what is the world going to look like? Maybe what we all agree on is that the world is going to change, but we don't know what that means. So there are some businesses that are doing well now, but the question we need to ask is, what happens when everything changes? Maybe not to the normal that we used to have, but the new normal, the future, would there still be fit into that? And whilst they might be growing now, and we have to take maybe a view that is data-based, but also understand that data keeps changing every time.
Mm-hmm.
What are the fundamental baseline thoughts to be the same, that the business must be providing services and products that people want.
Really great point, Dotun. So in terms of just unpacking like how much of the new changes are here to stay, it's like really tough to know, right? Because there's a lot.
I would just want to I just want to jump in there. I think that the way that I see it, and the reason that I think that I'm continuing to be just bullish on Africa generally, is that the crisis is just accelerating things that were taking place already. So if you unpack some of the things that Andreata was saying, businesses moving digital, e-commerce, m-commerce moving in new ways, online education. I think that we have a business in our portfolio that is both doing brick and mortar clinics and healthcare, but also has medicine and direct to consumer products. And we can see that evolution of having different pieces of the supply, of the healthcare vertical will be potentially a great one. And telemedicine was moving in that direction, but now that you have both a location-based one and an online one, we can see that having a huge potential for the future. So I do think that we don't know what the world looks like on the other side. And to be fair, we never knew what the world looked like on the other side of really any of this. Yeah. And so I just think that it is just moving in acceleration in a direction of something that was already happening. It's just going faster.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm really great point. Really definitely agree. Yeah.
So I would really like to echo that. I think that we've all got experience with financial analysis, and we've got no experience as doctors. So trying to predict what Corona-19 will be in 6 months or 12 months is very difficult. What I do know is, at the end of this, we're going to be in a counter-cyclical downturn environment. So in that respect, it's like any other recession. You kind of need to focus on what gets companies through downturns. And that is having a pricing advantage, having some kind of competitive advantage, having leverage with either their suppliers or their buyers, being able to have robust margins. A business doesn't absorb too much cash on their cash flow because fundraising will be difficult. They are the same fundamentals that come at the end of every crisis that allows companies to survive for 1, 2, 3 years. So I actually dropped off a bit when we were talking about portfolio. The big thing that we're really focusing on in the short term is to stop the bleeding. So something that we're really focusing on with our portfolio companies is collections. And going forward, what I tell every one of my portfolio companies is, for the love of God, don't be a bank. Don't be providing working capital for other people. So for us, it really, when we come out the other side of things, what the guys, we'll still look at the same sectors, the same industries. They will be changing technologies. We will be going more digital. But I think we'll have a greater focus on, and we always did have a focus on, robust management of the business, understanding the fundamentals of the business, why and why you're the guys who are going to win in a difficult time.
No, definitely. Really great point. So you all just really echoed that, there might be a lot we don't know, but there's a lot that we do know, and maybe we know enough to continue making certain decisions. So really great way of, summarizing that. And then also, this is a comment, not really a question, but Marianne raises a point about businesses being consumer focused and using data in real time. Data is obviously a challenge in this market, but there's a lot of data that we do have access to. So just focusing on using that to keep up to speed. I think that we're out of time, but there's just one last question that came from Sunil in the audience. Maybe someone can quickly answer. He's talking about the oil price collapse and basically looking at the macroeconomic situation in a lot of African countries, and wondering if the panel agrees that early stage investors to maybe think a little bit about the macro environment and are you being a bit cautious moving forward because of this? So
for me, I think it's definitely over a 2, 3, 4, 5 month period, you're definitely going to have to be cautious. So everything. I mean, for example, Saudi Arabia this morning or yesterday increased their VAT from 5% to 15% without any warning whatsoever. In Kenya, we've had complete change in the regulation of digital lenders, which is extremely aggressive and has had a real impact on those companies. Tax rates are going to change. Government policy is going to change. There's going to be a lot of cat-like behavior going on for the next 2, 3, 4 months, where it's going to be highly unpredictable. So I think as investors, a lot of us will be just trying to kind of understand what's going on before putting our foot fully back into the water.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll echo that. For us, even though
sorry, I just got the warning from Alex that I have to wrap up. Okay. Sorry, I'd have loved to keep going. This was really great. Let's encourage the conversations to continue beyond this panel. Thank you guys so much. Great chatting with you.